How did you almost die? I was supposed to be on the MH17 flight, but I had to change flight due to an emergency edit, so I wasn't expecting so many upvotes. I'll clarify a few things. I was on the opposite trip 3 weeks prior from KL to Amsterdam, with a connection between Perth KL, Amsterdam Dublin. It was the cheapest route from Perth to Dublin at the time. The return route was following the same route, just in reverse. The day of the return leg, my granny had a stroke critical, so I had to reschedule for obvious reasons. Call it what you will, but crazy. And I still have the bag tag from the journey the other way. Drowning on a pool, fell on a rock in the river, passed out in the tub, and it was still getting full. At this point Poseidon must hate me. Drove off a cliff, hit a tree on the way down that stopped us from dropping further down the ravine and into the river below. I got a deadly UTI that spread throughout my body as a baby, and I had to be hospitalized because my babysitter wiped my ass from back to front. You can't do that with girls, it brings bacteria from your butt to your urinary tract. I wasn't able to be treated until I was literally dying because all the doctors said she's too young to have a UTI. I was in a Kmart when I was 5. I was bored waiting around for my mom, and saw a Jawbreaker still in its wrapper on the floor. I walked to it and opened it. I tried to chew on it and it wouldn't break, so I tried swallowing it. I choked. I was told a Kmart worker gave me the Heimlich, and here I am today. Okay, so I was getting my teeth cleaned, and I get nitrous oxide because I have so many exposed roots. Well, my hygienist at the time was this lovely lady from Minnesota. Kinda flaky, but super sweet, talked about her family all the time. So I'm in the chair and she hooks up my mask and away we go. I actually fell asleep, except not so much. Turns out Barb had forgotten to turn the oxygen on and had been feeding me straight nitrous. She only noticed because I started gasping for air while unconscious. So that's how I almost died at the dentist. I never saw Barb again, but I tell you, that was the best nap of my life. Cancer. My husband decided it was okay to drive the Alcan in February during a move. Well, we slid off the road and ended up in 4 feet of snow. We had no shovel and no cars passed for hours. We kept the heat running, lowering our gas, as he tried to shovel us out. We had 0 cell service. After 3 hours a car drove by and stopped. He said he would go to the next town to try to find a tow, but it was payday and most of them would probably be drunk. Another 3 hours passed and we turned off the car and put our emergency blankets on ourselves and the dogs, and as much clothing as we could find. Then the same van comes along, and I can't make this up, he said he brought help, but it was his 8 kids all named after the Bible. I had a bottle of wine in the car and opened it. At this point BC I was like, fuck it, this is the end. Well, they attach our SUV to their van with chains. After helping my husband dig us out, they wouldn't let the woman help, and when they went to pull, they almost went in too. An hour later we were out, but also out of gas, and the next gas station was 3 towns over. He provided us with some he had in his container. We tried to pay him, as we had cash on us, but he wouldn't accept it. I am an atheist, but that event almost made me believe. Walking home really drunk at 5 a.m. when I was about 16, a guy started following me. As soon as I realized, I started running, losing him momentarily. However, when I turned a corner, there he was again, wielding a knife and sprinting towards me. I ran again, dialing the police as I fled. They instructed me to keep running until I spotted a police car. Fortunately, they arrived swiftly after my call. I provided them with a description of the guy and they informed me that he was a known violent individual. They said I was lucky, considering his history. Later that summer, a woman was murdered in the same area around the same time of night, and I strongly suspect it was the same guy. So yeah, I believe that was the closest encounter I've had. I don't know if I would have died, but it sure felt that way. I was at the Pearl Jam concert at the Roskilde Festival in 2000. A crazy crowd and lackluster security left 9 people dead at that concert. I was up front, the crowd was tightly packed. You couldn't really move and just had to follow the crowd and try to stay up. At one point I fell to my knees and just couldn't get up again. The air was humid and suffocating, and no matter what I did I couldn't get my legs under me. I was starting to panic when a stranger behind me grabbed me by my collar and pulled me up. I just managed to give him a grateful nod and he was gone in the crowd. I think he just might have saved my life. My sister has almost killed me a couple times. Once she almost ran me over when she first got her license. She missed me only to hit the gas pump next to me that then almost hit me as the pump handle flew over my head. Couple car wreck events, and then she gave me something to smoke one time that I ended up being allergic to. I violently threw up for an hour and then my heart slowed and nearly stopped. Also, I choked on a chicken nugget at McDonald's in the early 90s and was saved by someone else there eating with their family. That was pretty scary, honestly. Literally a month after moving into my apartment on my own, I was eating dinner and tried to swallow a piece of steak that was too big. I felt it stuck at the top of my throat and couldn't breathe. Somehow I only panicked for a second before calming myself down in order to reach in and grab it. Once I could breathe again and the shock wore off, I cried for about 10 minutes thinking how I didn't want to die like that. Please be careful when eating and alone. One drive by. And didn't know I was pregnant with an ectopic pregnancy which ruptured. Went into hemorrhagic shock. Needed 8 units of blood and emergency surgery. Narcolepsy from sleep apnea, get a sleep study y'all. 16-year-old farm kid me, stepdad told me to go pick up a load of corn seed for planting. I had gone with him many times before, and driven the truck full-ton dually diesel and hauled light stuff with it. Nobody told me how different it is to haul 10,000 pounds of seed on a big flatbed trailer on gravel. I had a lot of common sense and was driving slowly and carefully. Still 10,000 pounds pushed me down a gravel hill skidding, praying to God I stopped before the stop sign at the T intersection to a busy highway. I came to a grinding halt just as the front of the truck crossed the plane where the gravel turned to asphalt. A semi was coming from one direction and regular cars from the other. I shudder thinking about what if on that one. TL doctor, don't let untrained kids tow potentially deadly, heavy trailers with zero training. I'm severely allergic to fruit. Eating at a restaurant, I asked the waiter to make sure nothing fruit-related touches my meal. Well, the BBQ sauce had apples in it, the fruit that can really mess me up. On the car ride home I passed out and woke up in the hospital on a ventilator. Tree fruit can close my throat. Most of the time I just get a stomachache if I eat something with a little fruit in it, but that time they must have put a lot of apple juice in the sauce to cause that kind of reaction. Complications from chemo for Hodgkin's lymphoma landed me in the ICU for a week with a high fever, a resting heart rate of 177, and rapidly dwindling oxygen levels. Docs couldn't give me oxygen even once it dropped under 80 due to one of the chemo drugs I was on, called bleomycin. Spending days laying in place oxygen hungry as hell on earth. I made it to within a few hours of death, literally wouldn't have made it a single day more before the docs actually tried my suggestion, which I found on Reddit strangely enough, and it pulled me out of the tailspin. Walking down motorway drunk with the intention to kill myself, Lori brushed my coat. I was in a car accident that broke my neck. Went to the beach, was laying face down on my surfboard, very little surf so just drifting, almost asleep. Woke up rather far out at sea, having drifted into a rip. Swim between the flags, folks.